Chat GPT and I teamed up to design a full day's schedule of how to train and live like the Punisher, besides all the mass murder. So in this video, I'll show you how it all went down as I tried to live one day like the Punisher. Recently, I rewatched season 1 of the Punisher series that used to be on Netflix and now is on Disney+. And I thought to myself, I should make a video on how Frank Castle would train. But then I started to feel a kindred spirit with him and thought it would be awesome to try to live an entire day like him instead, including not just his strength and conditioning training, but also his combat and tactical training. The Punisher, or Frank Castle, is everyone's favorite sociopathic anti-hero. He's a former Marine and he served in the Special Forces. Then his wife and kids were murdered, and that was a very bad idea from those behind it. He of course killed everyone involved with that, but then went on to become one of the most ruthless and brutal vigilantes. Unlike other comic characters, Frank has no problem with killing, torturing, and using a very extensive arsenal. Castle is skilled in marksmanship, hand-to-hand combat, and guerrilla warfare. He's highly proficient with all types of weapons, including firearms of all varieties and combat knives. So I gave Chat GPT some pretty specific prompts, made sure this would focus on the comic book version of the Punisher, and then I made some edits and added some things because I am, after all, the superhuman strength and conditioning coach. So obviously we'll start at the beginning, the wake up and mental preparation. The day begins at 5 a.m. naturally.
Then, after getting some water with electrolytes and pouring my coffee, cold and black of course, like Frank and I's hearts, it's time to get in the cold. There's no better way to start the day, and nothing says sociopath like jumping into ice cold water. Next, after putting on all black clothes, which really isn't unlike most days for me, it was time for some morning movements. I did some basic stretching and then moved on to some jiu-jitsu mobility flow drills that I find really helpful to loosen up my hips and back. After that, I shifted to the mind. I started with some deep breathing and 10 minutes of mindfulness meditation. But you wouldn't really say Frank Castle has a peaceful mind. So although he'd do this type of meditation for the cognitive benefits, he'd also include some combat visualization. So I tried this for 5 minutes, and it was interesting. I basically imagined that there was a break-in at home, and I tried to picture every detail. My surroundings, their movements, and my responses. I visualized how I'd respond to multiple attackers with different weapons, and how I deal with it all.
It definitely was an interesting exercise, and I could see how it could be helpful. By 5:45 a.m., it was time for my first hard training session.
5 rounds of very heavy suitcase deadlifts, paired with bodyweight rows, changing grips, doing 5 to 6 reps for each grip. The suitcase deadlifts targets trunk stability, grip strength, and unilateral strength, mimicking the need to carry heavy gear or other things with one arm. The rows with changing grips improves back, shoulder, and grip strength, while improving muscle endurance and versatility. The varying grips simulate different hand positions the Punisher might need when climbing, pulling himself up, or engaging in combat scenarios. Then it was time for conditioning. So I loaded up my pack with a 30-pound ruck plate and headed to a nearby trail that constantly changes in terrain and elevation. I had planned to go for 5 miles, but this was a work day for me and I had a couple of meetings I had to make. So with time running short, I decided to go for 2 miles, but to make it more intense by periodically running and also only breathing through my nose. The added weight of the ruck plate not only builds muscular endurance and stability in the lower body while improving aerobic capacity, but also closely replicates the physical and mental strain of carrying tactical gear. This would make this type of training very practical for Castle, as he has to move with heavy Kevlar and multiple heavy weapons on his person.
So at about 6:45 in the morning, after nearly breaking myself, it was time for breakfast. I did all that pretty much fasted, so I made sure to have a decent sized breakfast, the way that the Punisher would.
I made 4 eggs for myself from free-range chickens and threw some steak in there. We actually order our meat through a company called Butcher Box. They ship frozen, excellent grass-fed, grass-finished steaks and ground beef to my door every month. There's no question in my mind that Frank would be eating red meat over grilled chicken breasts and rice cakes. And he would make sure it was grass-fed, grass-finished beef, or wild game for the added nutritional benefits.
The Punisher needs to always be aware of what's around him, and he needs to practice moving quickly through and around obstacles, and be quick on his feet.
ChatGPT suggested ladder drills for agility, but I didn't have an agility ladder. So I did 20-second on, 20-second off quick feet drills that my boss used to have the football players do back when I was a college strength and conditioning coach.
Then it was time for some obstacle course training, but unfortunately I haven't yet built an obstacle course in my bat cave, so I went to a nearby park.
This particular park has a playground with a bunch of things to climb and hop over. So I tried to climb up and around things, moving as smoothly and quickly as I could, trying to simulate how the Punisher would move through an urban environment to sneak up and take care of people who needed taken care of. It may seem a little ridiculous, because it probably is,
And to be honest, I was glad I went early so I didn't look like a creep in the playground without my kids. But doing things like this can improve body awareness, balance, and agility, and teaches you to navigate complex environments quickly. This is also when I started an environmental scanning exercise that lasted all day long. This is the practice of actively observing and analyzing your surroundings to detect changes and potential threats. Frank would probably instinctively do this from all his past training, but I researched some specific mental exercises to train the mind for this and decided on a color coding awareness drill. With this, you pick a color, I chose blue, and note every time you see it. So all day long, I would make a mental note when I saw the color blue. It sounds simple, but it can train your brain to pick up on details. By 9 a.m., it would be time for Frank to train his hand-to-hand combat skills. Now, if you're Frank Castle, you've got a background in the U.S. Marine Corps, where he trained in various martial arts through the Marine Corps Martial Arts Program, or MCMAP. This program incorporates techniques from disciplines like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, and boxing. Castle's combat training in the comics also extends to other styles of training like Muay Thai and Krav Maga. For my training, I focused on Muay Thai and some Jiu-Jitsu drilling. I would have liked to actually went to my Jiu-Jitsu gym, but time was short, so I made sure to do some drilling and focus more on my striking training for the day. At 11 o'clock, it was time for lunch. I had a grass-fed steak and some avocado, but I also needed the carbs to sustain me for everything I had done and still need to do, so I had some basmati rice with this. I also took this time to recover and reset. I did some slow breathing and used neuroscientist Andrew Huberman's psychological sigh technique. It's a breathing technique used to rapidly reduce stress and anxiety. It involves taking a long, deep inhale through the nose, followed by a second, shorter inhale to fully inflate the lungs, and then a prolonged exhale through the mouth. This method helps to decrease heart rate and activate the parasympathetic nervous system, promoting a sense of calm and relaxation.
So in the afternoon, it was time for weapons training, but unfortunately, I still have work and family obligations, even though this is my day to train and live like the Punisher, so I couldn't really go to the range or anything like that. But as I mentioned before, I do practice a hand-to-hand weapons-based martial art, and I actually was able to go over to my coach's place and practice it.
I do have something called Strikeman's Laser Firearm Training, where I can practice marksmanship skills at home. It's a dry fire training system that allows you to practice your shooting skills without the need for live ammunition. Not perfect for Punisher training, but it was something. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it was back to situational awareness exercises, advanced drills this time. I practiced something called mental mapping, which is where you create a mental map of any location you visit, noting key landmarks, exits, and potential hazards. Then after leaving, draw or describe the map from memory. This enhances your ability to quickly understand and navigate new environments.
So for my mental map drilling, I basically took a place that I have only been to one time, but that we spent a couple hours there. So me and my lady brought the kids to a family friend's pool, and they had this pool within the backyard, and I basically just drew out exactly from the sliding door that led you out to what they had in that back area space, where the pool was, where the stairs were, where the gate was, where the actual walkway is, and all that stuff. It was really interesting to try to figure out exactly where everything was from memory, because once again, although I did spend a couple hours there, I was focused on the children. Writing it all down really did make me more aware of what I actually take in and what would I actually retain of places that I've been.
I also tried something called escape route planning, which was fortunately something I could do as I ran some very not Frank Castle-like errands. So with this, when you enter any room or building, you quickly identify all possible exits and formulate a plan for the fastest way out in case of an emergency. Try to do this within the first minute of entering. This helps build a habit of constantly being aware of escape routes and safe points, crucial for maintaining safety in dangerous situations. At 4 p.m., it was time for combat conditioning. This is where you combine physical exercise with tactical movements or marksmanship drills in a high-intensity circuit. You could do something like sprints, diving behind cover, doing forward rolls, or even doing intense intervals of kettlebell swings or sandbag cleans, and then immediately have to shoot at a target. This is definitely best done at some tactical shooting range, and that is what Frank would do. But for the rest of us, we need to get creative. So again, I'm fortunate enough to have that Strikeman laser firearm training system. So I did 30 seconds of kettlebell swings or forward rolls and followed it immediately with 10 shots, trying to stay as accurate as possible. If you want to try something similar to this at home, you can work on aim and accuracy with anything from throwing darts at a board to throwing a ball in a bucket. The idea is the same. 5 to 10 rounds of this and it gets pretty hard to steady your hand to even aim.
Then I followed this with memory recall games while I was recovering from the interval training to train my ability to alternate between something that is cognitively demanding and physically demanding.
The Punisher would need this ability to maintain tactical awareness and make quick, accurate decisions during intense combat situations, ensuring he can respond effectively to threats while under physical stress. And so do I, of course. For the memory recall games, Chat GPT recommended Jetpunk and Baba Mail picture memory quizzes. Just Google these and they'll come up. With these, you look at a picture, a scene, or a group of objects for 30 seconds or so, then turn away and recall as much as you can. The particular websites I used ask you specific random questions, which is great. It's like a memory workout. The better you recall, the quicker you can assess a situation and react accordingly. From 5 to 6, Frank would have his evening recovery and mental training. Evening recovery is absolutely necessary to survive all this, so it was time for some more meditation and visualization to calm the mind. This is about mental resilience and stress management. Meditation or mindfulness practice for 10 to 15 minutes, followed by journaling about the day's training. At 6 o'clock, dinner time came around, and surprise, surprise, it was more steak and some of that basmati rice. I also made a good salad with lots of deep leafy greens. From 7 to 9 p.m. before bed, it's time for active recovery, so I did some light stretching and movement to aid recovery. Now this might be the time where the Punisher would actually go out for some killing, but I was perfectly content with reflecting on the day and planning the next day.
So it's finally the end of the day and I'm relaxing with a glass of bourbon because this was a day in the life of the Punisher, not Batman. And Frank drinks. Like me.
Looking back at everything from physical conditioning to build resilience and the advanced situational awareness drills to build the skills needed to embody Frank Castle, no particular part of the day was too difficult to handle. It was actually pretty damn fun. But ChatGPT and I may have gotten a little ambitious on how many things I could fit into a single day, and that's where it became tiring. The time constraints from my real life, my kids and my business, and all that made it pretty difficult to keep perfectly to this schedule. And I'm not sure I could keep this up if I tried to do it every day. The physical training wasn't bad because I already pretty much trained like that, but the combination of that and everything else wouldn't be sustainable for me. That said, I really enjoyed some of the tactical and situational awareness drills, and we'll definitely find a way to practice them regularly.
So if you have the time and energy, give this daily routine a try and let me know your experience down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this type of video and you want to see more of it, like this and let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time they shine my light in the sky.